Hey guys, I'm going to do a quick video here showing how you can remove the radiator on a 1995 Ford F-150. This video will apply to really much of the Ford trucks from, I don't know, 87 to like 96. So stay tuned. Alright, so the process is really fairly straightforward. You've got a lower radiator hose down there. You've got some, if you have an automatic transmission, you'll have the like intercooler type of thing to cool the transmission fluid. You've got an upper radiator hose here, and then there's two bolts on either side holding it in. Before you start this, you'll want to make sure the engine is cool. You don't want to be doing this when it's hot because the system is under pressure and it'll just shoot a bunch of hot water or coolant on you. You'll want to disconnect your battery. In this case, I just don't have a battery in there right now. And yeah, so let's get on to the first step. Alright, so the first step to getting this radiator out of here is to kind of make some room so you can actually get in here and work on it. So one thing you're going to have to remove is this air intake. It's just in the way. You'll have to remove, in my case, I just removed 2 Phillips screws. I believe stock they had some plastic pins, but that's what I have. So if you have the plastic pins, you should just want to carefully pull those out with a pair of pliers or something. And then from there, you can either unclip it here or in here, which is what I'm going to do. It just kind of pulls out. Get these screws out of here. Then this whole thing can come out from under the that, and then just kind of pulls out right there. You see it has 2 little clips. So with that out of the way, we can then start removing some other stuff. Alright, with that out of the way, now we can start getting into taking this out. So the next thing you're going to want to do is to drain the coolant out of the system. So to do that, what I'm going to do is just remove this lower radiator hose and then make sure it all drains out. There is, I believe, a drain. Yes, there's a drain plug on this side that you can use as well. But since I'm taking the radiator out entirely, I'm just going to use the hose because it'll drain it a lot quicker. The coolant is very toxic to animals, so you'll want to make sure to collect that and keep it in closed containers before you recycle it. And in this case, I just got water in here, so I'll just drain it into a bucket. And I will get that done and then put you back on. Alright, so the next thing you can do, just take a pair of pliers and then get this clamp off to take off the upper radiator hose. There might be a little water in here. Should be fine. And just like that. And then, so now the upper and lower radiator hoses are disconnected. The last 2 things to disconnect from the radiator are these right here, the transmission lines. But first, I think it might be a good idea to go ahead and get this fan shroud off, and that'll give you more room to work on those lines. Alrighty, now that we've gotten this upper radiator hose disconnected, we can just take a 5/16 socket and get these bolts off right here. Just loosen them up all the way and then take them out. Then after you've gotten those bolts out, then you will just slide this radiator thing up, and it's clipped in on the bottom down here. I don't know if you can really see that, but it just clips in on the bottom. There's no other bolts holding it on. So once you get these off, it should loosen up a bit. And yeah, so I'll get that done and then put you back on. Alrighty, once you get these 2 bolts undone, the fan shroud should just come loose just like this. And you should be able to lift it up a little bit and kind of get it out of your way just like that. Because it just slots in on these 2 little clips at the bottom of the radiator. And you could just go ahead and remove this whole fan shroud. I'm not going to. How you go about doing that would be taking the fan off. Right there, there's 4 little bolts there. You take all those 4 out, and then you take the fan off. And then the whole little assembly comes out. But I think I can get the radiator out just fine with this just kind of dangling here. It's off the radiator, so it's not really in my way. The only thing left to get are these 2 hoses right there for the transmission line, and so I'll get what I need for that and then put you back on. Alrighty, now to get these lines off of here, you just take I believe that's a 5/8 on this end here, the bigger nut, and then what you're trying to get off is this right here. So that is a 1/2 inch right here. What I'm going to do is take some PB Blaster and spray it on it because it is looking pretty rusty. So I will work these off. One thing to note, if you're turning this nut here, you're turning it, but this right here is turning with it. That's a bad thing. You don't want that. You want this to spin freely on this. So I will get this off and then put you back on. Alrighty, so I got both my lines off. They were not as bad as I was thinking they were going to be. So yeah, they just come off. Keep in mind there may be a little bit of fluid dripping out of them. It should be okay. Just make sure to fill up the transmission fluid once you get this all back together. So from here, all we're going to have to do is just pull this hose off of here for the coolant overfill tank. Just pull that off. I'm going to tuck it out of the way over here. And yeah, so from here, the last thing that you need to do to remove this radiator is going to be to take out these two bolts right here on either side. And it should just lift right out of here. All right, now that those two bolts are out, the radiator is loose. And as you can see right down here, it literally just sits inside of these little like rubber things. So the radiator should just be able to lift right on out of here. We still have a little bit of coolant in it, but yeah, so there you are. Radiator is out. All right, so as you can see, this process is really fairly straightforward. It's not like there's not any crazy hoops you have to jump through. I guess the only things really to note is just make sure you don't break these connectors here, because it's probably a pain to get in there and replace those lines. Other than that, I think it's probably not going to be all that difficult for you. I don't have a radiator in yet, but once I get that in, I'll probably put up a video on how to install the new radiator. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If it helped you, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing.